Hello, here we are again. Let's talk about Ancient Egypt Part 2. I believe this is 3.04. The art of ancient Egypt offers insight into the Egyptian culture. While common folk were buried in simple sand pits, the tombs of Egyptian nobles and royalty were filled with treasures, including magnificent sculptures and wall paintings. Egyptians believed those works of art were necessary for survival of the Ka, the immortal human life force. You can click through these pictures and read a little bit more. Okay, you can also click on this student guide right here and it will give you some background information about what I'm going to read to you today. Whoops. Art and religion in ancient Egypt. Art in ancient Egypt played a vital role in religion. Tombs were thought of as eternal homes for the spirits of the dead. The Egyptians believed that if priests said the right prayers, art in royal tombs would come alive and provide for the entombed person's spirit in the afterlife. Sculptures were seen as duplicates of mummified bodies. Should the body decay, the spirit of the deceased could occupy the sculpture. Ancient Egyptians placed the Book of the Dead inside tombs. It gave instructions in hieroglyphics for the safe passage of the spirit through the underworld. You can click through these and learn a little bit more. Prince Rayatep and Nofret are painted limestone sculptures that were found in a mastaba at I can't talk Mihdam, Egypt. A mastaba is a rectangular sculpture with sloping sides, built over a burial chamber. There are several mastabas at the Mihdam pyramid complex of Pharaoh Sneferu. Rahotep's probable father. Wow, that's just a lot of information, isn't it? The statues of Prince Rayatep and his wife Nofret radiate serenity through the solemn, confident expressions and solid, compact forms. Their pose is frontal and symmetrical. They sit rigidly upright. This is them right here. As alternative housing for the spirit, or Ka, the sculptures had to last forever. To make them last for eternity, sculptures carved them out of stone and included few projecting or breakable parts. That's smart. These two are some of the best preserved sculptures of ancient Egypt. Their paint is still vivid thanks to their placement in a sealed burial chamber. Compact forms, solemn expressions, and symmetrical frontal poses are conventions of Egyptian sculpture. Another convention is the rules or canons of proportion that sculptors follow. Instead of depicting lifelike proportions, artists sculpted figures with broad shoulders and slim waists. They considered those proportions ideal for representing nobles, royalty, and the gods. Egyptian artists also conventionalized skin tones. That is, they painted men reddish brown and women a creamy color. You can see this convention in Egyptian paintings as well as sculpture, and you can see it actually in these two right here. He's kind of reddish brown and she's kind of creamy looking. Egyptian artists did not intend funerary sculpture to record exact features of pharaohs and their families. They strove for a timeless style that associated one pharaoh with the rest. Sculptures of lower class people tend to be more realistic than those of idealized pharaohs, meaning idealized means that they were trying to make them look perfect. Rayatap and Nofret, however, are recognizable as individuals. Okay, and that's who these two people are. Nefertiti, which means the beautiful one is here, wow, was the wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten and mother-in-law of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Made famous by the treasures discovered in his intact tomb, Nefertiti was an influential woman in her own right. Some scholars believe she ruled Egypt for a brief period after her husband's death. She frequently appears in decorations on the Great Temple in Karnak. She is often shown wearing the headgear of a pharaoh, like the crown on her head in this bust right here. The bust of Nefertiti was found in the workshops of the Egyptian sculptor Thutmose, the official court sculptor of Akhenaten. Though Nefertiti was renowned for her beauty, Thutmose adjusted her actual appearance to meet the Egyptian ideals of beauty. Bust portraits like this are rare in ancient Egyptian art. Scholars think that Thutmose may have made this as a model for other sculptures or paintings of Nefertiti. For thousands of years, artists adhered to the Egyptian conventions for depicting the human figure. During the reign of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, they relaxed those conventions. As you can see in the bust of Nefertiti, this is a more natural figure with sinuous lines, graceful features, and a long, slender neck supporting a large crown. She looks almost like a flower on a fragile stalk. Nefertiti's refined features are intensified by the artist's use of color, representing makeup Nefertiti would have worn. Thutmose outlined her heavy-lidded eyes in black, duplicating a mixture called kohl that Nefertiti used to create desirable almond shapes. He painted her cheeks and lips red, mimicking the red ochre and water Nefertiti used on her skin. He also used rich red, green, and gold in the crown and beaded collar. Thutmose never completed the addition of crystalline black wax to the second eye socket. So he never finished this other eye right here. And you can click through here and see close-ups of the things that I was describing. Pharaohs and their families were buried with gold, jewels, sculptures, spices, and other treasures that Egyptians believed their ka would need in the afterlife. Wealthy Egyptians were also filled the walls of the tombs with paintings and relief sculpture showing scenes from the life of the deceased, such as cooking, fishing, and spiritual scenes, such as making an offering to a god. Egyptians expected that, prompted by the prayers of priests, the pictures would come to life, forever supply the entombed person with his or her all of his or her needs. To make the wall paintings, artists used the fresco technique of applying plaster to a wall, letting it dry, and then painting it onto the plaster. Learn more about fresco by clicking that right there. The lavish tomb of Queen Nefertiti, wife of Pharaoh Ramses II, was constructed in the Valley of the Queens on the Nile River. In this wall painting, Nefertiti offers perfumed oil to the goddess Isis, as well as other offerings seen on the table. Nefertiti wears a vulture headdress and a beaded collar to indicate her royal status. Isis holds an ankh, a looped cross signifying life, and a scepter, and wears a horned sun disk headdress symbolizing her divinity. Egyptian artists typically use distinct outlines filled with flat color in their wall paintings. In this painting, however, they layered the hues to slightly model the forms. So you can look at this picture here, and this is the Valley of the Queens that they were talking about. When making a painting or relief sculpture of a person, Egyptian artists followed several conventions. As in the round As in the round sculptures, they used a canon of proportion, a set of rules to construct the perfect figure. They first drew a grid on the wall, then they drew the figure to fit within the grid. They knew exactly where the ankles, knees, waist, elbows, shoulders, and hairline should line up on the grid because they used a specific unit of measurement. Early conventions used a unit of measurement called royal cubits. Later conventions used body parts, for example, within a fist. If the fist filled a box on the grid, then the body from feet to hairline would be 18 boxes high. Other conventions required artists to portray figures with broad shoulders, slim waist, and body parts in their most recognizable position. Heads, waist, legs, and feet were shown in profile, eyes and shoulders from a frontal view. Artists typically showed the hand from inside or outside, and both feet from the inside. So, not necessarily a natural look. In addition to the jewels, wall paintings, and sculpture placed in tombs, Egyptians included prayers and hymns to guide the Ka through the underworld. This collection is known as Book of the Dead. Book of the Dead, written on papyrus, included magic spells that protected the Ka from dangers in the underworld. It also provided answers to questions that the Ka may be tested with in order to have eternal life. Select the slides to see more imagery in the Book of Dead, so you can click through these. You can see another Egyptian convention in this painting. Artists used size relationships to show the importance of individuals, with the most important figures as the largest and servants as the smallest. According to that convention, which figure in this image is the most important? You can click on here to get the answer. The hieroglyphic text in the Book of Dead combines picture symbols that stand for sounds, words, and ideas instead of paintings or carvings on walls. The creators of this artwork painted on papyrus. So here's a wrap-up activity. You can kind of click through all of these things. And then you can kind of quiz yourself on some of the things that we've talked about inside 3.04.